Hello everyone, I'm Gigi.
And I'm Jeff.
We just wanted to share our experience with everyone traveling from the USA to Italy during this difficult time of travel during the COVID pandemic.
We managed to make it to Sicily, and it was rather a long trip, as everybody knows. It's a long plane ride, but nonetheless, we were prepared. My wife prepared the paperwork ahead of time, and we were able to cooperate and willingly quarantine, and we also prayed a lot.
Yes, we did. So our flight from Tampa to New York. In Tampa, there was very good social distancing practices at the airport and on the plane. There weren't a lot of travelers.
Everybody wears masks.
Yeah, it was very good. We arrived in New York. There were more people, but still not what you would expect.
Right.
Because we were coming from Florida to New York was requiring anyone landing there to quarantine, and fill out a health proxy. But we weren't staying in New York, so we didn't have to fill out those forms and present them. We were traveling through New York to Italy, so it wasn't required.
Now, our flight from Tampa to New York was through Delta, and they were very good, very efficient, both on the ground and in the air. After arriving in New York, we had to have our temperatures taken, fill out a health declaration, I guess is what they call it, and present that to the ticket agent, who in turn checked all our documentation, visas, passports, and all the necessary information was filled out on the form and so forth. And then she issued the boarding passes. That was Alitalia.
Yes.
So in flying Alitalia, we found them to be very good practicing their social distancing on the aircraft as they spread everyone out. The plane was not nearly full, and they continued to reinforce the issue of wearing your mask, keep it up unless you're eating and so forth and that kind of thing.
Yeah, even on the plane. We actually sat apart, like when we got our seat assignments. I was in front of my husband. They didn't even sit you together as a couple.
Right.
I had a whole row of 3 seats. We were on the left side, and then Jeff was behind me with the whole row. Everyone had masks on, and everyone was seated like that with a whole row. So that was excellent.
The flight was excellent. It took less time to get there than what they originally had stated. I don't know, we had a tailwind and less people. The plane flew faster. We don't know, whatever. But they did feed us. They gave us water and whatever we needed. It was a very comfortable flight. A little rough in the air a couple of times there. The plane was shaking pretty good, but that's to be expected.
It wasn't, you didn't have a choice in meals like you would
True.
under normal conditions. They just provided you with whatever they had on the plane,
Right.
and a couple of bottles of water, and then they provided breakfast later on before we deplaned. So on arrival to Rome, when we arrived at Rome, we entered a designated area. They took our temperatures, and someone from the Ministry of Health was present monitoring the process.
Yes.
So from that area, they led us through security because we were continuing to go to Catania. So we had to fill out another form pertaining to the reasons entering the country and where we would be quarantined. Then we had to hand carry to the police customs agent, who checked all the documentation and our reasons, asked us a few questions, and made sure that we had a phone number that they could check during the quarantine process. In the airport in Rome, it was busier than normal.
Right, but not nearly as full as it usually is. Same with New York. It's just not as busy as it normally is.
Right. I think it was pretty busy when we got through to the point where we were going to get on the plane to Catania. We noticed that there was social distancing set up there,
Yes.
but there was so many people. The flight was actually full.
Yes.
It was full, and so we were sitting one next to each other.
But everybody had a mask on.
Yes, everyone did have a mask on, and although people wore masks, many of them were not covering their nose sometimes, so the police would remind them.
The police in the terminals were walking around patrolling, and they would tell people to put their mask up. They would correct them. Same on the plane. The
Yes.
flight attendants, same thing. They just, anybody that had their mask down for too long, or when they weren't eating or whatever, put your mask on. So
They were making an effort
Yes.
to do everything.
Definitely.
Sometimes children, but people were making an effort. Arriving in Catania, to get on the plane to go to Catania, we had to fill out another form stating where we would be quarantined.
and this was for Catania, just
Yes.
for Sicily or whatever. Apparently,
Yes.
it was kind of confusing to us because we'd just gone through the whole process in Rome, which Sicily's part of Italy, so you'd think one was good for the other, but apparently they needed a closer document to where we were going to be quarantined in that area, because that's the area they're in charge of.
Yeah, I
So,
believe they said the plane, it was for the plane itself, the airlines itself,
Yeah.
they were keeping
Yeah.
these forms.
Right.
So I think it was mostly for that, like the travel on the plane.
Right.
So on arrival at the airport, people did wear masks, but it was very, very crowded, especially around the baggage and area and the gate areas. But the police were trying to enforce social distancing by reminding people, but it did get a little crowded.
Yeah,
I
it
felt.
was questionable. I mean, it could have been a lot better than it was, but it could have been a lot worse, I suppose. So
Yes.
it's what it is.
We did find that most people were wearing masks in Sicily, and when we were picked up, we picked up our luggage, and everything arrived, which was awesome, and we were happy. They did have on Delta a bag tracking. You could track your bags.
That was new.
Yeah, but when I tried to track them when we arrived in Catania, it didn't work. So anyway, but we did get all of our luggage, so
Yes.
that was great.
Yeah, it's always a big plus. 'Cause we've had it happen the other way where the bags are lost in space someplace, and yeah, boy,
Yeah,
it's tough finding your stuff, but
it worked great.
it worked fine.
And then we had Massimo, our driver,
Yep.
come, and he had a large van, so he wore a mask, we wore a mask, and he sat in the way front. We were
Driving, of course. Yes.
Yeah, we were-
Sure. We were way in the back.
way in the back.
So
Yeah, and so we arrived at our apartment. Our Giovanni was wearing a mask as well.
greeted us there. He was waiting for us, and good communication skills. Young fellow, and really concerned about the COVID. He had his mask and so forth. So very nice to know that people are making that effort.
We found it interesting when we got here and actually talked with some of our friends that live here, that the numbers here in Italy have only increased slightly since they've opened up
Right.
in areas for summer tourism, and to the point where they're actually working closely in anticipation of perhaps enforcing more precautions in order to maintain those low numbers. So they're keeping track of things, and everyone is preparing if this, if the numbers go up, then they will respond to that. So, as usual, we have to kind of check in again for Alitalia, right, Jeff? Is that what it is?
Well, apparently. We're not quite sure, but we'll find out in a minute.
We already have
Not a
boarding
big line.
passes, but this is the procedure, so we're following the procedure. So, as we had said, we made reservations with an Airbnb for the time period of our quarantine until we go into our long-term rental apartment.
Right.
We were very happy with our apartment, and Giovanni is a wonderful host.
young fella, very interested in accommodating us, and even though beforehand we let him know that we were going to be quarantined for 2 weeks, whether it was required or not. We were going to do it anyways, and let him know that of course we're coming from the U.S. He knew that,
Yeah.
and but he was fine with all of that. He had everything ready for us when we got here.
Yeah, he's very accommodating to us when we made the reservation through the process. And one thing that was difficult was because we couldn't book our Airbnb because they had a 30-day policy of non-refunds for 30 days. And we had to wait until we knew the flight was going to actually go through.
Right.
It wasn't going to be canceled.
Because we already had one canceled on us already, and
Yes.
so we knew that could happen again.
Yeah, so we needed to know, was it going to be canceled or not? And then they wouldn't let us check in online.
Right.
So we had to wait until we actually got to the airport.
To present the documentation in person so it could be checked, and which they did at Delta
Yes.
Air. They went through all the paperwork. Everything was good.
Yes. So then at that point, we had been talking with Giovanni, and so we said, okay, we did get our, we are going to be able to fly, and so we made the reservation then, which we had previously discussed beforehand.
And he understood. He understood
Yeah.
completely that why make a reservation that can't be refunded if you don't know you can fly.
Right.
So he was willing to hold it for us and wait for that text.
Yeah.
And he did.
It was very nice. So we had to do everything. We had to be very prepared. We had to do a lot of preparations ahead of time, and then figure out step by step what we could do. Like we had friends, aware that we were arriving, as far as to pick us up at the airport. But everything had to be done kind of in real time because
Right.
we couldn't. If we couldn't arrive, then obviously they wouldn't need to pick us up and etc. like that. So it was, as far as being in the apartment, which is very great. It has beautiful
It's
views.
a penthouse apartment, so
Yeah.
you can see the ocean and overlooks the city, and we're away from everybody.
Yes. So that was one of the reasons why we chose the apartment.
Correct.
Not only because Giovanni was we were forthcoming with him, and he was very willing to help us,
Correct.
but also because I'll show you, we have a beautiful view. So while we're quarantined, we're so happy that we have friends that have been following our journey.
It's been a big help,
Yes, and they're willing to bring us groceries.
which they did yesterday.
Yes, thank you, Fitz and Paula.
And they were following along with our whole adventure just to make sure, because even though we did fly from New York to Rome, we weren't entirely sure that when we got to Rome, if they were actually going to tell us, hey, turn around, you need to go back, or
Yeah.
whatever. We didn't know, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, we've never done it before. Who would know?
Yeah.
But that part of it, as we stated, all went fine. And our friends were, we texted them, and they couldn't help us enough. And
Yes,
we
it's
can't
true.
thank all of them enough for the coordinating all this transportation and food and
We're very
the whole thing.
grateful for our friends'
Yeah.
love and support
Big time.
during our travel, and we feel very welcome to be back in our
Yeah.
beloved Sicily.
Yes.
While we're here, we're making sure that we're checking our temperatures and seeing if we show any signs of symptoms, but so far so good. So I'll show you some pictures of where we are, where we're living, and hope that this video has been helpful. And if you find that you like it, please check the like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. So we'll continue to provide information of what's happening here. It's easier for us, instead of responding to all of our friends' inquiries and others who are thinking of traveling here. So we'll do it in this format. It's hopefully more informative that way.
And this is our experience. Your experience may differ.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.